In legal and in a lot of other places, you hear about fractional, executives, right? And you have in legal, it's a fractional general counsel. We do that, but what you're doing is you're getting one person for kind of part time, very experienced, very knowledgeable, good asset to your company, strategic, leader, contributor. But you're getting one person part time. That's fine, and that's a great way to go.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
What legal landmines are hiding in your startup and how much could they cost you later? In this episode, we explore the legal blind spots that trip up even the most promising startups and how you can avoid them without hiring a full time legal team or getting billed out the wazoo by contractors. From intellectual property oversights to missing documentation and reactive decision making, we dive into why legal strategy isn't something to bolt on later, it's something you need to bake in from day one. We'll break down what founders often get wrong when scaling fast, like neglecting contracts, ignoring IP, and scrambling to fix issues only after they become expensive problems. You'll hear how fractional legal services are giving startups flexible, strategic support that adapts to their growth without breaking the bank. And hey, if you've heard about fractional legal stuff before, this is a completely different model. It's pretty cool. We'll also touch on how legal services are evolving, including the integration of AI tools to streamline workflows. But make no mistake, when it comes to nuanced negotiation and long term risk, human insight still leads the way. If you're building something that matters and want to protect it as you grow, this episode is a wake up call and a roadmap all in one. Let's dive in. Our founder on Tuesday was James Piacentino, the CEO of Thrive Genetics, who's leading the charge using personalized medicine to tackle the opioid crisis. James shared how his father's struggle with addiction inspired a platform that uses genetic and behavioral data to assess risk before a prescription is ever written. From patient voice monitoring to real time recovery insights, this episode revealed that AI diagnostics and compassion are reshaping pain management, one data point at a time. And our expert guest last week was Casey Wu, 6-time CFO and co founder of the Operators Guild. Casey walked us through what it takes to scale from early chaos to operational clarity. He shared why vision alone isn't enough, the difference between motion and momentum, and how mentorship can accelerate not just your business, but your leadership growth. You have to develop yourself too. If you're building anything complex and fast moving, this one is a tactical gold mine. If you missed either episode, go back and check them out because they're really hard gold in those mines there. My guest today is Jeff Holman, founder of Intellectual Strategies and the legal strategist behind some of the most innovative startups out there. A trained engineer, inventor, and practicing attorney, Jeff has spent over 2 decades helping founders protect what they're building while scaling without legal drag. Jeff has built a fractional legal team model unlike anything that you've seen that gives companies access to expert legal support on a flexible, right time, right budget basis. He's the rare kind of legal advisor who can speak fluent startup, tech, and law without slowing down the pace of innovation. Welcome someone who helps founders innovate with confidence, Jeff Holman. Hey, Jeff, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Jeff. It's great to be here.
You've been bridging law, business, and innovation for 2 decades, which I think is really cool. How did that blend of disciplines lead you to create the fractional legal model at Intellectual Strategies?
Oh, long and winding path, right? It's going from one thing to the next, and just like observing along the way. But really, there are a couple milestones, and the short story is when you've been outside counsel, you practice with clients in a certain way, right? The way that lawyers teach you to practice with them, which usually is maximizing billings and maximizing verbiage and stuff like that. When you go in-house and you start working with the executive leadership of a small, fast-paced, growing company that might have investors, they might have board observers, they have lots of customers they're trying to bring on. Like, you start to see that there's a different way to practice. I kind of liken it to practicing outside counsel is like before having kids. Practicing inside counsel is like, oh, I've had a kid and it's so different. Like, I thought I knew it would be like, and maybe I knew like a little bit some of the things that would happen, but when you actually have that baby and you drive away from the hospital, you're like, oh, this is like, I'm responsible. There's a whole lot more going on. And now I like really understand what it's like to have a baby. That's what it's like going in-house. So having worked outside and inside, it really gave me the two perspectives to just reimagine what would it be like if I took the inside or in-house way of working and made it some tweaks and did it in an outside counsel role and offer it on a fractional basis, because that's what most of my clients need is this fractional budget for full service, legal services. So it just kind of came about from the mix of experiences that I've had.
Oh, I love the fractional model. I think it's fantastic in a lot of areas, and legal is one of those where it just makes so much sense. Yeah. I think a lot of startups or maybe early stage companies don't think that they need, legal representation. It's not an important thing. It's something we'll do later when we get big. But what legal blind spots do early stage founders most commonly overlook until it's too late?
Yeah, I mean, every company needs it, and that's not just me saying that because I'm an attorney and I want to bill you for it. Like,
it's true.
Like every company needs it. Every company, if you look across a company, and I've done this for companies at different stages, right? Every company has all the same problems that a really large company has. They just don't have them as often, and maybe the consequences sometimes aren't as big, but you have all of them, from employees to funding. Maybe that's fundraising, maybe that's debt, maybe that's paying your debts, I don't know. But funding, employees, customers, internal team things, like, you have all the same problems. You just don't have all the same resources. So it's this really unfair advantage, I think, for a lot of founders and small companies to try to cover all that. So, but I think there are a couple standouts. What are the main issues? The main issues are not documenting the things that you think that you've agreed on with people, whether that's a partner that you want to start a business with and you're like, hey, it's going to be awesome. We love each other. Let's go start a company. You don't write anything down. Eventually that relationship's not going to be quite as loving or as friendly as it was for whatever reason. And that's when people start to say, well, that's not what I thought it was. Well, that's not what I thought it was. Like then you realize all the things that you thought, that you just assumed up front and never wrote down. So you didn't actually come to an agreement. You start to have to resolve those. So partnerships, some early stage funding where people are really fast and loose with friends and family. Early hires, oftentimes you're like, I really want this person to join my team. I'll entice them to come on, and you're like, hey, we'll give you stock options. Well, you may not even have stock options set up in your company, or you might not even be a company that could do stock options. You don't know that. So it really comes down to all of the little, I'm going to call them agreements, but all of the little enticements and the little conversations you have that really should be documented and aren't. They're just, some of those are going to blow up. Hopefully they don't blow up in a way that totally kills your company. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Hopefully they're manageable, they're fixable, but those are going to come back and bite you. They do with every startup.
That's 100% correct. And sometimes they don't blow up the company. They just cost you a lot of money later on.
Yeah. Yep. That's what's so hard. People are talking about, oh, let's just get AI and let's plug our questions into AI for a bit. And what do I do? And it's like, well, if somebody treated me like AI and they just said, well, give me whatever answer you think is best based on the input that I give you and nothing else, I'd be like, oh, great. As long as I don't have any malpractice liability,
right.
I could say whatever I want. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. But that's not what people go to lawyers for. People go to lawyers because they're like, hey, this is an issue. There's kind of two sides of it, right? There's the side of whether or not something's going to blow up. And if it does blow up, is it a big deal or not a big deal, right? Yeah. And a lot of times it's the stuff that you think, probably won't blow up, but if it does, it'll kill the company. And it's like, how do you justify? A lot of people say, well, it's not really likely to happen, so they don't get legal advice. Or if it happens, it's not really going to be that big of a deal, so they don't get legal advice. When in reality, you have to balance both of those and figure out if the risks really are worth it to move forward without startup counsel. But let's face it, a lot of startups don't get counsel. Like, it just is, I can sit up here and preach and say, you need it, you should hire me, you should get somebody on board, whatever. A lot of people aren't going to do it. They're going to end up, dealing with it one way or another. It's usually much more expensive to clean it up. If it does blow up and it's a big deal, then it's going to, those things are going to be bigger, more expensive issues to solve after the fact than if you'd done it right the first place. Like every time.
Always.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah. And if there's not alignment or kind of that forethought in just kind of the business setup, how much is there in business strategy? IP, I think, is another big area.
Yeah.
Do startups really have a strategy around that, or what have you seen that hasn't worked, and what have you seen that has?
Do you want the simple answer or the complicated answer?
Because let's start with the simple one.
Yeah. So the simple answer is no, they don't have a strategy. Like businesses and a lot of business owners don't know what strategy is. They think, oh, I have a plan. I'm going to hit a goal. Like I'm going to have 10 team members, or I'm going to hit, 5 million MRR or 5 million ARR or 100 million, whatever. I've got a goal and I'm working towards it. That's a strategy. That's not really a strategy. We could talk about what strategy really is. It's a good goal. It's a good kind of vision to have. But startups don't have strategy. They just kind of move with the wind. If a customer comes along, they're like, oh, that looks good, I think I'll take their money. And then another customer comes along and they're like a little bit outside their business model. They're like, well, it'd be really nice to have that money too. So they'll do this. And when you find yourself saying yes to everything and no to nothing, that's a good sign that you're not being strategic in your actions. You're being reactive and maybe opportunistic. Maybe that's not bad, but it's not strategic.
Yeah. A lot of good intentions maybe, but not actual doing the right things at the right time.
Yeah. And you asked about IP, like IP being, you're developing patents for inventions, you're getting trademarks for your branding assets, or maybe copyrights on some of your material that you're creating, or maybe you're actually cataloging your trade secrets, which very few people do correctly. But, once you start thinking this is our business model and these are the assets, these are the things, the brand, the inventions, the tools, the platforms, like we're actually developing these things very specifically, and we're using IP to protect that so nobody else can copy it. But we're developing these tools very specifically and deliberately to support and enable our business model for this specific type of customer so that we can become the leader in our niche industry, however we define that. Now you're talking strategy, and you're talking IP strategy aligned with business strategy, and it can get really cool.
When should the founder really be thinking about that? Yeah, about IP. I mean, not just patents and trademarks, that's a part of it, but kind of the strategic role IP plays in business growth overall.
I think it's day one. I mean, here's the deal. If you're building a business that you think at some point you're going to want to do something with other than just take a paycheck, then you should be thinking about strategy, right? If you're building, like if I'm a lawyer and I'm just saying, I'm just going to practice law the same way everybody else does, there's nothing really different about my practice. And, that's fine. I can probably make a good living and it's not what I do, but if I were doing that, I could probably make a good living, hourly rates are good. There's always people with legal issues. I could probably make a business, but I'm not really doing it for more than just my month-to-month pay that I get from the business. Then there might not be a whole lot of need to do much in IP. But I don't think that most of the people I work with are doing that. Most of the people I'm working with are more innovators. They're creating a new product. They're creating a new brand, a new platform, whatever it is, because they want to bring that from inside their head into reality. And they say, hey, we're going to do things differently. So as innovators, I think every innovative company should they're just by nature trying to create something that didn't exist before. And that gives them an opportunity to protect what they're doing and build additional value through that protection, through that intellectual property protection into the business. For example, if I've got a business and I'm like, well, I'm a plumber or I'm building a SaaS platform and we're going to do this thing. We're going to have these customers who pay us monthly, fees or whatever. So we have this recurring revenue model. That's awesome. If you're doing all of that and you're doing it in a new way, why not brand it? Why not put a brand around it that you can actually protect and make that be part of your enterprise value eventually? Because for most companies, while patents are really cool and it's a strength of mine, for most companies, your brand is probably going to be the most valuable thing in your business the day that somebody comes to buy it. Because without the brand, they're just buying they're buying you as an acqui-hire team member, or they're buying your customer list. But even your customer list is more of a brand asset than it is, a different type of asset. So I think they should be doing it from day one. If you're an innovative company thinking longer term than simply, I'm going to make a paycheck out of this company. I'm going to go set tile and that'll pay for my truck and my camping trips. Yeah, that's fine. But if you're building something that you want to have enterprise value and sell or fundraise or do something bigger with that business, a real business someday, then IP should be at least a small part, if not a big part of what you're doing.
How do startups use IP as a moat? I think those are some of the hardest things to build these days, are moats, because technology used to be one. It's not really one anymore. People, those kinds of things, locations. But so many moats have just gone away because technology has moved so fast. Yeah, how do we use IP as a moat? Not just a defensive checklist, but as something that really does add value, especially as it relates to B2B SaaS.
Yeah, B2B SaaS. So SaaS, you're going to have some platform stuff that you're probably going to protect, maybe some processing stuff. That's with like patents and stuff like that. That's kind of hit and miss depending on the type of SaaS company you're dealing with. I think for most SaaS companies, and again, I don't want to harp on this too much, but I think it's fundamentally true that your brand assets are going to be some of your biggest assets. So if you're a SaaS company, you ought to be building a brand around your SaaS company. And I know, the trend right now, at least I'm in Utah, this is what everybody in Utah is doing. They're like, let's start a new company. Let's name it something. We want it to be a pretty normal name, but we're just going to take some letters out of it. And we're going to spell it differently without any vowels or whatever. And, that's fine. From a trademark perspective, taking a few letters out, but having this essentially the same sounding word doesn't get you there, right? You've missed an opportunity to build that brand. And you're probably, if you become successful, and especially if you're VC backed and you're building the business before you have the foundation built, you might have a chance to come back and revisit that and rebrand and do it right the next time around. But it's something that can be done upfront very easily if you're thinking about it. And I get it. A lot of, legal is not necessarily the top of mind for a fast moving, sales minded startup founder, right? They're like, build and sell, build and sell, build and sell. And they should be. But if you could say build and sell, and let's put the brand around it properly while we're doing it, again, doing it right up front is going to be a lot less expensive than redoing it later on, if you need to.
What types of legal functions are ideal for fractional support? And when should a startup eventually consider going, completely in-house? I mean, how long can they stay fractional?
Oh, you can stay you could stay. I've got clients who've been tens of millions, if not 100 million or more, that are fractional clients. Now I do it a little differently though, right? So let's maybe set the stage. In legal and in a lot of other places, you hear about fractional, executives, right? And you have in legal, It's a fractional general counsel. We do that, but what you're doing is you're getting one person for kind of part-time, very experienced, very knowledgeable, good asset to your company, strategic, leader, contributor. But you're getting one person part-time. That's fine, and that's a great way to go. That probably doesn't scale as much as what I do. What I do is I bring a fractional legal team. So we've essentially got the general counsel role, but plus other roles. So we'll help do, your contractual agreements, your fundraising, your patents and trademarks, even some litigation stuff. Like we'll help kind of across the board. So you get like a fully staffed startup legal team so you get the right attorney at the right time hopefully at the right price. And that will scale further. So that's why we've been able to take companies that are, just figuring out their 0 to 1, and they hire us, and they're like, we got some that are pre-revenue that hire us because they're really structured in how they build. Others that, are 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, and they're still scaling with us because our team is able to expand with them more so than maybe a single attorney. But back to your question. Your question was when should they do that and how do they do that? Like so people hire legal too late, frankly, but I get why they do it. It's a budget thing. So if you're at the point where you're saying we really should bring somebody in house, you probably should be looking at fractional, 6 months before that at least. You're probably in a position where you can get a fractional person on board before you wait so long that you're, maybe a little desperate to get a full-time hire on board to start doing stuff. And so the way I look at it when I talk to clients, I say, if you've got, everybody's got like one-off little projects. You need a trademark.
Right.
You probably don't need a fractional team for a trademark. You've got a contract you need to look at, your terms and conditions, privacy policy, whatever. You probably can do those just on a transactional basis for a while. When you start to see things come in and it's across the board, you're like, what is going on? Somebody just sent me today, one of my clients, hey, this is really interesting. I just got an ADA complaint letter, right? An ADA accessibility, website accessibility complaint letter. But they also have employment stuff, and they have, board of director meetings that need some attention. And they have, like, when you start to have these ongoing issues where you're just constantly going back out and saying, I need an attorney, or I need another attorney because I need the patent attorney for this, and I need the contract attorney for this. Like, when you start to see that happening, that's a signal that you should be looking for a fractional counsel and maybe even a fractional legal team like ours, because it's not going to get less busy as you grow. It's just going to get more busy. And one of the benefits and reasons that we opted to do a team approach was a little more complicated on our end, but it simplifies things from the client perspective, because I'm a realist. Nobody wants to hire an attorney if they don't have to. And even if they have to, they still don't want to hire an attorney. And so when you have different issues coming up that require different legal expertise, like it's draining to have to go back and be like, well, we got him on board or her on board to cover these things, and now I got to go find another attorney for this. Like, why isn't, this is what prompted me to do what I'm doing. Why do I have to go hire 6 attorneys at 6 different law firms in 3 different locations to cover all this stuff? Like that, it doesn't make sense, right? And you see that a few times and you're like, yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense. We should do something about this.
I love your model. Because I like fractional. I think that's a great way to go. But the problem is exactly what you said. You hire a general counsel,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have certain expertise, and you need help with IP, and they're like, "Cool, I know somebody." And so then they go and they engage somebody else, and then now we've got another IP person that we're paying for the one-off project, whatever those hours are. Plus, we're paying the general counsel, and so they end up being the quarterback and just going out and finding other players, instead of just having one place where you can go and you've got an entire team. There's huge value in that.
Yeah, there is. And even with even having one in-house person who can quarterback others, there's an opportunity for big savings there, because if you know what you're doing, if you've been in that role before, if you've worked with outside counsel, have good relationships, you can secure legal counsel. Let me put it this way. You can define the problems in a good way, a really kind of contained way, so that when you go to outside counsel and you say, hey, we need to bring you on board for this special piece of the project, but this is what we need. Like, I know what the budget should be. I don't want you to go over. I'm going to set limits. I'm going to do typical normal, attorney billing controls that maybe the founders don't know about or don't always do. So you can still control a lot of it and still add value if, assuming that that's what your team is doing. Hopefully they are. That's what you hired them for. But
I've never had that experience. Bills are always high. So
you've never seen legal bills that aren't high. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's correct. Yes.
Well, yes, I can't answer for the whole industry, but I can feel your pain. I've been there.
Well, you built a model to solve it. And I think that's one of the things that is really refreshing to see, is that you have one relationship, but then you have access to the entire team, lots of
Yeah.
different specialties. Huge
Yeah.
value there.
I love that you say that, because that's a point that I try and also kind of drive home. I am a pretty good attorney. I'm also a really dang good bottleneck. You send me a bunch of projects, I'm like, here, and this is what attorneys do. They're really good gatekeepers. I send me all your work. I'm going to tell my team when it gets done. I'm going to make sure it goes to who I want it to go to. I'm going to tell them whether or not they can talk to the client. And it's like, I'm such a good bottleneck that I've said to myself, I don't want to be the bottleneck. I want, like, literally, if you were our client, I'd be like, Jeff, I'm going to be on your team. Trevor's going to be on your team. Wes is going to be on your team. Danielle's going to be on your team. Here they are. Like, here's who you should go to for each of those things. I'm going to help quarterback. You can come to me at any point, but you also have direct access to the team, because let's face it, you don't always want me involved. Sometimes you have a quick question. It's like, hey, Danielle, tell me about this. Like, I want to just sit down for 15 minutes. We don't need Jeff involved for every single thing. And to try to schedule around. So I don't want to be a gatekeeper or bottleneck in that process. And it's a little scary, and it's really unorthodox from a legal perspective to just say, hey, client and team, you guys should talk to each other directly. But I've worked with some companies like marketing agencies and things like that, and I'm like, accounting, like why bottleneck that process? You hire a marketing agency. You don't demand that the CEO does all the work for you. You're like, no, they have a team for a reason, because they all contribute. They're all working for you. And law firms tend to do that backwards. And they're like, well, I have this one really good attorney. I really like him, but man, is he slow. He's got team members, but I don't know who they are. And
it's a black box.
Yeah, it really is. And it's that way because the billing, it's not that way because legal has to be that way. It's that way because law firms are structured. They've structured their business models in a way that promotes that.
Yes.
And that's the only reason. And it's not a good reason, in my opinion.
Yeah. Are you missing key relationships that could transform your leadership? Most leaders are. They just can't see it. And here's what shocked me. The most successful leaders aren't lone heroes. They're the center of 4 specific relationships that multiply their impact while preserving their sanity. You're probably like everybody else, drowning in connections, but starving for real support. And it's creating a silent epidemic of leadership burnout among executives just like you. So, take my free assessment at thecaptainskeys.com. Discover which critical relationships you're missing in under 5 minutes, and then grab my new book, The Captain's Keys, part Netflix drama, part game-changing blueprint for leadership that actually sustains you. One CEO called it the owner's manual I never got. So stop flying blind and see what you're missing. Well, from an owner's perspective, founder perspective, what are the biggest legal blind spots you see scaling companies fall into, especially as they hire faster, raise funds, and go into new markets?
I mean, the really general answer to this, and we can dig in deeper, but the general answer is people just are not documenting things well. They're just moving fast and loose. It's this sell things or build things and break things, right?
Yeah, move fast and break things.
Move fast, break things. And that's what they're doing. And they just don't understand that the legal consequences. So like I mentioned before, documentation is the number one mistake. That being said, if you're an early stage company, if you're a SaaS company, there are a couple pitfalls that I would watch out for. If you're hiring a tech team that's outside, you want to know who owns the IP. And a lot of people know this, but some people don't. They get into this and they're like, what do you mean the software development company that I hired owns my IP? Well, if you don't, this is a state-driven thing, so it varies in different states. The general rule usually, although not everywhere, is that if you hire a contracted person, a 1099 type of person, or a development team that's not your employees, they will often own the IP they developed, even though you told them what to do. The actual product they develop and any additional inventions they create or copyrightable stuff or whatever it might be, like they'll own that. And if you don't know that up front, if you don't put the right documentation in place, which they'll agree to up front, almost everybody will say, yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you have that? That makes total sense. You're going to pay me, I'll give it to you. But I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised. You've probably heard stories where people don't put that documentation up front. Something sours in the relationship, and later on, the development team says, "Well, I mean, I own it, so you're gonna have to
Yeah.
pay me before, or I'm not gonna give it to you. And you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But now that we're fighting, there's this tendency to, kind of put up walls and block things and make things difficult. So that goes down. So owning your IP, and the same thing happens, not to the same degree, but that similar type of situation can happen with employees. If you don't have the right agreements, onboarding documents in place for who owns the IP. Now, normally the default is that the employees will have an obligation to assign their IP to employers. So that's the default is the reverse from contractors and employees. But if you don't have that right documentation in place, later on when you go to raise money or do a deal, get acquired, people are going to dig deep into your documents. They're going to be like, well, do you have the documents that say that your employees assigned all their inventions to you over the last 6 years? And you're like, no, I mean, I was early. Like, what was I supposed to do? Oh, well, you're supposed to do it. Nobody's like, oh, well, then we forgive you if it's early. Like, no, now we got to go do it.
It affects your evaluation too.
That's exactly right. Not only are they going to charge you to pay their legal team, who's probably going to be, $1,500 an hour or more. You're going to be paying the bill for their legal team to come in and tell you how to fix it. They're also going to use it, like you say, to negotiate the value down of your business and say, well, I mean, there's these risks and who knows, and we did the best we could to fix it, but we can't pay you the full price because these risks exist. So IP, throughout your company, it's the impact can be extensive, even though it sounds like it's patents. It's just little patents, just this little like thing that maybe we want to do. That's number one, maybe the biggest. The other one is founders. Like, you just need to plan ahead for something to go wrong in your founder relationship. I've got a client who came to me. They weren't a client when they formed their company. They weren't a client when they were doing, close to $100,000 a month in, first year retail sales, and awesome for them, right? A little company just starting up and 3 partners and doing great. They're, the banks look at their numbers, they're like, whoa, this is really nice. Like, how'd you do this well for the type of business you are, right? But they came back and they hired me not too long after that, still doing great as a company. But they said, hey, we have a partner. One of our 3 partners doesn't want to work in the business anymore. I'm like, okay, doesn't sound like a problem to me. What's the issue? Well, she wants to keep her equity. I'm like, well, it depends on what you like. Did you set it up so she gets to keep her equity or not keep her equity? Yeah. No, she gets to keep her equity, but we really want her to not keep all the equity because she's not working anymore. I'm like, well, that's not what you set up. Said, yeah. Said, well, you're just going to have to deal with it. And they're like, well, there's another issue. I'm like, what's that? She wants to keep voting. Like, she wants to keep having a say in the business. I'm like, oh, well, how did you set it up? Well, we set it up so that everything would be unanimous. And I'm like, well, with 3 people, a unanimous vote works out great as long as you're all friends and getting along. But, the second something happens like this, unanimous is really difficult to get, especially when the founders are not only, separating, but maybe starting to get a little antagonistic with each other and emotional. Like, now I have my, they probably hired a good attorney to do a lot of stuff for them, but how you get a founding partner or operating agreement or bylaws or something that require unanimous consent for every single thing in the business is kind of beyond me. That might have been a ChatGPT thing. I don't know. I feel better saying that it was than saying that an attorney drafted it.
Very well could have been.
It could have been. So there's stuff like that where founders and how you structure either the relationship before you actually start the company or the relationship to manage the company, both at the shareholder and at the manager or director level, depending on the type of entity you are. You need to do that smartly, and you need to do it with the end in mind, which is some point someone's going to want out, whether it's amicable or antagonistic. Like, we need to plan for the day that we're not all on the same page, and if you don't do that, that's one of the major blockages to growth in a business. So there's two of them. I think the third one, I won't go into detail. You mentioned it, and it's just more extensive of the issue that you already brought up, and that is due diligence. If I could give advice to founders who are in kind of high growth mode with potential exit of some sort on their horizon, like plan for due diligence, put your paperwork in place, get your documents in place, and just know what you need, what you're going to need 2 years from now when you have, Series A round come in, or when you try to, float LOI around for selling, like whatever it is, like be ready, like prepare for that before it happens, because you're going to be really frustrated with the amount of work that has to happen when it comes up. And as you mentioned, the deduction in valuation that you're going to see because it's not done. So again, all just different flavors of documentation, which, is really what makes being an attorney so exciting.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, you mentioned AI a couple of times, and I think AI is reshaping legal work, but definitely doesn't eliminate the need for strategic counsel. Where does AI help? Where shouldn't it be used? And where is that human insight still completely irreplaceable?
We're not there yet for AI to replace attorneys. We might get there at some point. I think we're a ways off.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that human brains are, we make mistakes as humans. So if it was, if you want something that never makes a mistake, use AI. If you want something that can take context into play as you're making decisions, use a human. And right now, everything requires context. The problem with AI isn't just that it hallucinates or makes stuff up, right? The real problem with AI is, unless you're essentially an attorney or expert level legal authority who knows exactly what types of factors would influence the advice you would get out of AI, then the chance of you putting the right information in to get the right information out is almost zero, right? And the ability to kind of weigh the risks with the decisions that you make along the way is almost zero. So that it's just a garbage in, garbage out type of scenario. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not garbage in, but still garbage out because of hallucinations. And as we talked about before, the two types of risk, will it happen, and how bad could it be if it does happen? It's just it's not there that we can rely on it. And I'm seeing a lot of kind of counter push right now. You get on LinkedIn or whatever, and you're hearing a lot of attorneys say, and especially in-house attorneys, the people who are like, we're trying to adopt this. We want this. We're getting pressured from above to cut our legal spend internally and hire fewer outside counsel. Like, we need this, but we can't rely on it because the company is not willing to let the risk slide, right? Will it happen, and how bad will it be if it happens? Like, nobody wants to let that slide, but everybody's like, well, let's just use AI to, get the answers. Right. Okay. So I don't know if that answers your question. We're just not there. I think it's getting better, and I think it's a huge tool for attorneys, or maybe a really experienced founder who's kind of been there, done that, seen these things before, to do that. I kind of think eventually, we might see some type of equivalent of a fractional legal team, a really well-trained, experienced fractional AI legal team come in, where you start to really push for perspectives from across the board, different types of legal expertise, all looking at different angles of an issue and coming up with kind of a collaborative response. That's going to get us closer, but I don't, until you can get the context, unless you know and you're comfortable with the level of context that you're giving it, you just can't be really comfortable with the level of output you're getting, unfortunately.
I think that's so important, is the context in that input completely drives the information you get out. Just like you said at the beginning, you type in the simple prompt, and then you get an answer back. Yeah, is the answer right? Who knows? It all depends on what you told it, how much context, how much of that matters, and what was missing. I think that's a big part of it.
It's huge.
It's so nuanced.
It is, and I laugh because when you say that, I just picture myself maybe having a conversation with like these clients, right? The ones who
Yeah.
are having the kind of partnership that's falling apart. And I'm kind of a sarcastic guy sometimes. I would actually really enjoy it, not for career purposes, but I'd love for them to come to me and, tell me what's going on, and I'll just be like, well, here's the solution. You just do X, Y, Z, like AI might do. And
Yeah.
they'd be like, well, is that going to work? I'd be like, I don't know. But do you want to do something different?
I'm just AI.
Do you want to do something different? Because I can come up with a different plan. If you like that plan, I think it's going to be great. But if you like a different plan, I'll give you a different plan.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that one will work either, but I'll give you whatever plan you want. You just tell me what you
Right.
want. And it's like, well, I don't know what I want. Sorry. I could see that playing out in my head, and I guess it seemed funnier from, with the context of AI and the conversations going around today. I love AI. I'm on AI every day, right? So I'm not like offended by people wanting to replace attorneys with AI.
Sure.
I think it's great. I think it's going to be an awesome tool. I want to figure out how to incorporate it better into what I do. But I just have to weigh that risk. What's the potential that my client's going to get the right answer or the wrong answer? And what's the potential that if something is wrong, that it is wrong in a really bad way? Nobody's going to hire me to tell them not to worry about the risk side of it. That's the problem.
Right. One of the uses of AI that I've seen, and you can tell me whether, good idea, bad idea, is that founders will take agreements and drop them into AI and get feedback on what's good, what's bad, any outlier terms or things like that, or some of the gotchas that may be in there. What's your take on that? Is that something that they should be doing, or is that something that they really should get somebody else to actually review?
Being an attorney, it's really hard to answer these questions succinctly.
Of course.
Let's
AI would just give us an answer.
Yes. And is it right? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But let's set aside attorney-client privilege issues, because there are a lot of issues where when you throw stuff into ChatGPT, you waive attorney-client privilege, and that means that everything that you're doing on AI, can be discoverable. That might not be a good thing for you, right? So that's one issue. Let's set that aside because it's kind of a more nuanced issue. So is it good? I think it's if the privilege issue isn't an issue for you, then to use ChatGPT or a tool like that to give you like a summary assessment of what's in a document, I think it's great. I'd do that all day long, right? As long as you're in like a closed.
Makes sense. Yeah, but I think it also depends on how important the document is, because there are a lot of nuances in there that it may or may not catch that you would still be agreeing to if you signed it. So it's definitely not the end all. But I'd like that. The summaries I think can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And looking for terms, if there's specific terms in there, termination, things like that, you should be reviewing anyway. But sometimes they'll put some of those terms that should be in one place will end up being buried somewhere else.
Yeah. So there's all those. I mean, the bottom line is there's a lot of people who are using these tools, but they're finding that it takes them, even if they're experienced with the tool, it's taking them just as long to use the tool as it does to not use the tool. And not using the tool is just maybe a little more comfortable because it's the way they've been doing it. And so you're seeing a lot of people not using the tools, at least not in the way that the kind of law tech people are saying that their tools can be used. So the bottom line is, if you're looking for average work, average terms, just the average of what's out there on the internet, and you're okay with it, that's what you're going to get. Plus maybe some gotchas in there that you don't catch. If that's good enough for you where you're at and with the budget you have, then I say go for it. Someone's gonna have to clean it up later though, probably.
That's true, and it may or may not be expensive to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, looking out a few years ahead, how do you see legal services evolving for startups, and how should founders prepare now for that?
Oh, if we're talking about startups, I mean, I love this question because I think that legal services should look exactly like what I'm doing, just better. I think that the ability for to get access to really experienced attorneys who are remote but are very engaged, very high level experts in your business, bring them on board at an early stage and navigate these issues. I think that's what should be happening. Now, I think there's going to be ways to do it more efficiently than what we're doing it, right? Because we're still, call us, email us, whatever. I think there's going to be a lot of tools that help the conversations happen more quickly between teams. It will help, like I say, I think there'll be at some point, I don't know if I have the energy for it, but there should be an AI fractional team out there, and a startup can just subscribe to it, and they can essentially call it 60% of the work, right? They can issue spot things. They can say, hey, flag things that you really ought to bring an attorney in to look at this, or, this is really, maybe risk assessments. I think that there'll be efficiencies in those types of tools to help issue spot and engage experts. But I think we'll still need experts, and I just hope we're doing it in a way that's more scalable than it seems to be today. And by scalable, I mean somebody that you actually want to talk to, somebody you actually want to call whenever you can. Because you can, any law firm, people have asked me, well, can't any law firm do what you're doing? Like, yes, they could. They won't, though. They just won't, because their business model is not set up that way. And because for being expert communicators, attorneys, out of maybe everybody, maybe not doctors, I don't know, but attorneys have made it almost the most impossible to communicate with them. Because if for no other reason than because they say, well, you're gonna pay me a minimum of 15-minute increments at $1,600 an hour just to even have me read your email that you just sent to me. And it's like, well, and that's a model, but it's great for the attorneys if you're kind of time slaves or whatever, but it's not great for clients. It's not great for client communication. And I think we're going to see a lot of evolution in what law firms look like, what expert law firms look like, and how to interact with them in a much more efficient, scalable way. And that's probably going to take down some of the really big law firms. I don't know. That's not a prediction. That's just like, I don't know how they can continue to go down the path they're on. I mean, I think some attorneys I've heard, I don't know, I'm not in these circles. They're upwards of $3,000 an hour now. And I'm like, wow. That's not sustainable. And they'll give you, a lot of these law firms are like, oh, come to us. You're a startup. Come to us. We're really startup friendly. We give you $25,000 in free services up front. And it's like, yeah, you're going to be $50,000 into invoices, long before you ever would have incurred $25,000 with any other, practical law firm out there. But it's a marketing thing for them. It'll last for a while, but that can't last forever.
Yeah. Where can people learn more about you and about intellectual strategies online?
Well, I hope they listen to this podcast episode on your show, for one. Also, I'm on LinkedIn and happy to connect with people there. Also, I do, for potential clients, I love to get on a 30-minute free strategy call. So people can get on my website, which is intellectualstrategies.com. You can see where to book a call right there with me or one of the other attorneys on my team. And we'll chat about, what you've been doing, what kind of messes you've made, where you're headed, what milestones you're working towards in your business. And we'll try to kind of match up some of the legal things you should be thinking about to help you achieve those milestones or clean up those messes.
Outstanding. We'll make sure and link all of that in the show notes. And Jeff, it's been such a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Thanks again, Jeff, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Jeff and his company, Intellectual Strategies, at intellectualstrategies.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. It's at Champion Leadership on YouTube. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with the aspiring unicorn founder who thinks Series A is just a vibe. Everyone who shares this week gets a VC mood ring. It changes color based on investor enthusiasm, term sheet tension, and whether you said AI powered enough times in your pitch. What if personality data could be your company's next competitive advantage? Our next guest, Rachel Edwards, will introduce the Strategic Personality Blueprint, a patent-pending system turning deep psychometric insights into actionable tools for hiring, leadership, and team development. This is personality science that's finally made practical. Then after that, can you scale past 10 million ARR without breaking your site or your processes? Matthew Stafford joins us to share how he's helped hundreds of founders optimize their sites, systems, and strategy to grow faster and smarter. If you sell online, any kind of product led growth motion, this episode is absolute pure gold for you. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey. Be safe out there this weekend.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.